to Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I thought I would do a review for you guys. So a few weeks ago, I listened to Confederacy of Dunces. I know I had said I was going to DNF it when I had the physical book a couple years ago, but I decided to give it another shot and thought maybe listening to the book might get me more into it and more appreciative of that story. So this is a satire about the main character, Ignatius P. Riley, and his mother. I don't remember her first name though. And they live in a city in their own little town. Ignatius lives with his mother. He's overweight. He's very intelligent, but he refuses to work. He thinks he's superior to everybody else. He won't. And he is determined to write something impressive, something historic. He wants to become a scholar. And what was really hard about me reading this book physically the first time was it was very hard to be in Ignatius's head the whole time. Well, actually, we're not technically in his head the whole time. We visit some of the other characters like this. There's this bar, or I guess it would be a pub, actually. Very, well, I guess it is a bar. But, where, in the first couple chapters, Ignatius goes, him and his mother are at the bar, but then they get kicked out because Ignatius is very rude to the patrons and the bartender that works there. And he's kind of, and, his mom is very much in defense of him. But she is determined to get him a job. Any job will work. And at one point, he gets a job at some kind of, I want to say it was a laundromat. But he screws that up, of course, by offending customers and gets fired. And also, he tries to incite the employees, I don't know, maybe it was a laundromat. I physically read it, so I don't remember what it was. But he tries to start a union, get a riot, but it doesn't go well because the people don't entirely agree with his complaints. And because of that, he provokes them, he ends up getting fired. Because, of course, the guy who runs the company doesn't want his employees doesn't like that Riley's starting trouble. And then he ends up basically getting a job at the hot dog vendor because it's easy and he doesn't have to do a lot. Although he spends more time eating the hot dogs than actually selling them. And it's basically him going about his day and passing judgment on others and criticizing people and just feeling like the world is an embarrassment and that he's the only decent person, the only intelligent person in his community. And there's a colorful array of people in this community of different backgrounds, different sexual orientations, different races, and mostly they all get along pretty well except for with Ignatius. And his mother is desperate to, she loves her son, but she is just fed up with him. He's constantly making things difficult and just wants to get away from him, which it's usually, I've read a lot of, Stephen King writes this kind of trope of the mama's boy, where the grown man lives with his mother, but it's the mother that's the overbearing one, the controlling one, the manipulative one, the one that tries to keep her son there by either whining or being angry and gets angry and bitter and saying, I'm the only one who loves you and takes care of you. I spent hours, giving birth to you, and just constant guilt tripping their son, and taking in it was Eddie Kasprak, and Sonia Kasprak was his mother, and she made him think that he was always sick. He was a hypochondriac because of her, and just was all you need me, and, oh, don't do this, it's gonna give you cancer or something, which, granted, a lot of things can potentially give you cancer. And then while in the screenplay of Rose Red, because Rose Red There was a diary of the ghost in that story, but it was not written by Stephen King. So, but he did write the screenplay, and I think he had asked the person who wrote the Rose Red Diary of Ellen Rimbauer, he was the one who actually asked them to write it, to go with the miniseries. Or like ABC wanted him to do that, something like that. But anyway, in that story, it was that the mom, I think she was very critical and very overbearing. She wasn't whiny, but she was very aggressive and pushy with her son and controlling, and it was like, you know, I'm taking care of it, I'm protecting you, and oh, I need to, he goes with a group of people, the son, he's a psychic, so he goes to a haunted house with a group of people to investigate, and the mom's, when he doesn't call, she's like, call me when you get there, or even if nothing's happened, still call me to let you know, all right? And on the long run, yeah, that's like, my parents will, when I would go to a friend's house to go to a sleepover, they would tell me to call them and or like I'm leaving the house to, go up to the bookstore. They, want me to, or go for my morning walk to let them know. So that's a little bit understandable, but the way she kisses him on the mouth, does that thing that mothers do where, put the spit on the hand to clean the face in front of his new colleagues, and she ends up, when he doesn't call her, she shows up and is going to be like, I'm coming to rescue my boy, he needs me. And it's very embarrassing for him. And while in this one, Ignatius P. Reilly is the one who's the whiny one, the needy one, the one who clings to his mother, and is, this is definitely a mama's boy, in my opinion, and he just tries to, hold her hostage from, not in a physical sense, but in a manipulative way. Guilt trips her. And he's just such an unlikable, obnoxious character, and I think to the point where it's funny, it's ridiculous, and I think that's where the satire comes in, the fact that you're supposed to know, that he's a ridiculous person, and that he's obnoxious, that he's annoying, and just frustrating. But I like how we have such a colorful group of characters, of residents in this community. It's like a lot of different personalities that mesh well together, with the exception of, Ignatius himself. And it's, the whole parts with him, the whole idea of him thinking that he's better than everybody is just laughable. And, the whole thing calling out, and it's like, oh no, the world has gone to the dogs, and he's so rude. It's just, but it's so funny. The point of it gets extremely funny, which, like I said, that's where the satire comes in. I mean, I never know how to react to satire. I'm supposed to laugh out loud or just smirk or something when I'm reading it. Like, I don't know, and I don't know why. I probably shouldn't even care, but I just always wonder, how am I supposed to react to satire? Like, is it okay that I get annoyed with it at times, get annoyed with the character, or are you supposed to, or maybe you're just supposed to find it funny? I just never know. So it was very hard to read. Like, it's a very easy to read book, but it was very hard to physically read, because we're most of the book, we are in Ignatius's head. We're with him most of the time. I think audiobook really helped. And I like the narrator. The narrator, I should have wrote down his name, but he did a really good job becoming the character of Ignatius, but also being all the different other characters, which, the only problem with audiobooks is, unless it's a full cast, you're only going to get one person, so you just hope that they're good at being immersive and creating different voices, and which I think this guy did a pretty good job. At least I wish I had remembered to write down his name after I decided, but I totally forgot, because I just wanted to do this review, so before I forget. So since this is so short, I'm going to go ahead and do my review for the audiobook I just finished last night, which is then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This one I actually did physically read the whole thing because, it's not super long. There was no characters that were really so annoying that I just couldn't physically read, and I just decided to DNF at the time. Because, I'm saying I didn't do that. I read the whole thing and I loved it. But I did not remember it. I did not remember who turns out to be the killer in this one. So I think that almost really helped. I think it helps if you don't reread a book right away. A fiction book. Non-fiction, that's different. But if you don't read a fiction book right away, then if you want it to feel like it's the first time, then take a long time before your second reading of a book. Because then you won't remember. If it's long enough, then you might not remember all the details. But anyway, so this is of course, a mystery, like all of her books are. 10 people are invited to Soldier Island. In this version, they call it Soldier Island and refer the people in the rhyme are called soldiers. I know originally they were referred to as Indians, and since that's not exactly, that wouldn't, I don't think people would like them using that term. It's changed to soldiers. And it was these 10 people are invited to the Soldier Island by, some random acquaintance, but they all have a shady past. They all might have done something that legally they wouldn't necessarily get convicted of it. It wasn't a criminal offense, but they've all done something that could, even if it's not a criminal offense, it's something that other people could still believe them guilty of, that they still committed a moral crime, so to speak. And no one is on the island except for these 10 people, and they have a peaceful first night there. You get a good dinner, everything's great. They have nice, little awkward conversation, but then they are interrupted by an announcement via a gramophone reminding them of their immoral actions. And eventually one of them gets killed. And so slowly throughout the book, each of them gets killed one by one, in a way that was inspired by a children's nursery rhyme. Like I said, no one else is on the island, and they have to figure out who did it and who is the killer, and it has to be one of them because, again, it's just them on the island, but the question is, who is the killer? So you have various different characters. You have only two female women, Vera and Emily. Emily Brent is an older woman who was a governess. I think she was a governess. I think women were governesses. Emily was a governess of a teenage girl who got into some trouble, sinful behavior, and something happened to her. She committed suicide. Then you have Vera, something happened with this little boy that she was, taken to the beach that drowned. You have a judge who passed sentence on someone who might or might not have been the criminal that he, deserved the sentence or not, and that some people even think was an innocent person. You have a doctor a woman died under his, back in the day when he first started, a woman died by his mistake. There's, this guy who's not exactly a great guy, not exactly, doesn't care much about other people, and he accidentally kills some people via a car. I'm trying to think of, some people were convicted of, there's like I said, there's 10 characters, so it's hard to remember every single one of them, what they did. So anyway, because I don't remember it as well as I did the first time I read it, So if did like I said, it felt like I was reading it for the first time, and it just and there was still managed to be tension and a little bit of an adrenaline rush because you don't know. I was trying to figure, okay, who was the killer? Who is the person that is doing this? Because it has to be one of these people, because twice they search the island and no one else is with them. It's just them. So you know that, yes, it has to be one of them. So trying to figure out, okay, who is the one who did this? And like, who's the one who's going to pass judgment on these people? And now, probably, of course, these characters, I do agree with the critique that these characters, we don't really get, they're not very complex. We don't really get to know them, really dive deep into who they are as people. We only touch the surface of who they are. But I think due to the situation, you don't really, I'm guessing Agatha Christie felt like you didn't really need to get to know these characters too much, especially with what's going to happen to them. There's like almost no point in really diving deep into the identity of these characters. You just have this this limited knowledge of what we know about them, this supposed crime that they committed, this murder that they might have murders that they each might have committed, and getting to know how they handle this situation of like each of them is getting cut off one by one, and how they handle that, how they respond to that act. And they slowly each become even more paranoid and losing their minds because they're so afraid that one of them is going to kill them all. So I guess we really didn't have time to get to know them beneath the present situation. But I think this story was more than just about that. I think it was actually not about the characters, but it was about the character, the killer. That they only know him as Mr. Owens. None of them have met him. The two servants that came to help with the butler and Mr. Rogers, I think his name was, and his wife, who did all the cooking and cleaning and all that. They never met him. They were just given instructions. And so all we know is his name is Mr. Owens. And he's, in a way, trying to play God, passing judgment on these people, and deciding to take the law into his own hands. Because, of course, none of these people, you realize slowly that none of these people probably did the direct murdering of someone. So they can't get, condemned for a criminal offense because they didn't actually pull the trigger, so to speak. So they can't get in trouble by the law. But they can get in, someone can, the killer is passing judgment on them and killing them via, moral offense. This moral offense, and deciding to take the law into his own hands. Which makes him, insane. Because it's, because even though, these people probably deserve consequences for their actions, but who are we to judge, to pass that judgment on them? Who are we to decide who should be punished, or what kind of punishment at least? As I was rehearsing what I was going to say in this review, it just got me thinking how the killer, Mr. Owens, would probably love cancel culture. And because this is when he would take pleasure in cancel culture, because it's all about passing judgment and deciding to punish people by ostracizing them. No one's been murdered, obviously, but there is a sense of, trying to ostracize people, trying to punish people because, and it's mostly, of course, celebrities, rich people that are rich and made money off of their talents. Of course, now you have influencer culture, which is people that anyone can become a celebrity just because they make a video on the internet, like what I'm doing right now. And I think Mr. Owens would, enjoy when these people get people who make mistakes that, could have dire consequences, or are, hurt someone emotionally, and the whole community decides, in defense of that person, decides to pass judgment and ostracize that person, or as we say now, cancel them. And not that I want to go into that. I'm bringing it up because I feel like Mr. Owens would like that because of what he's doing in the story. And I find that really interesting to think about. And like I said, I was trying to figure out, and I almost thought I got spoiled for who it was, because I looked at reviews. Like, I try not to, but I have this bad habit of looking at reviews just as I'm close to the end of a story, just to see what other people think of it. Even though I already read and remembered I liked it last time. I mean, that's all I remember is enjoying, and then there were none when I physically read it a few years ago. It's probably like 2017 or 18, probably when I read it. So, and it's now 2026, so it's been a while. I would love to see the adaptation. I heard that Aidan Turner, he played Philly in the Hobbit movies, and I remember he's in Poldark, which I'm reading that series. And a lot of reviewers said he did a good, one of the reviewers who mentioned that he was in the adaptation said he did a really good job with who he played. But I thought this was an intriguing premise, in the idea of someone passing moral judgment on these people and deciding how they deserve to be punished for it. And then also, one of my favorite tropes is when they have a religious character that almost goes tyrannical, or a religious character, or just not necessarily goes, not always tyrannical, but a character that just tries so hard to stick to their belief system, their faith in God, and are put into a situation, which, again, Stephen King also does that a lot in his books, just like, I don't know if Agatha Christie does that a lot in her books. I haven't read enough of her books to determine if she has a lot of religious characters in her stories. But the religious character in this case was Emily Brent. And like I said, her story, as I mentioned in the beginning of this review, she worked for this family on a teenage daughter who can know what is considered sinful behavior, doing certain activities of sex before marriage and getting pregnant. And Miss Brent passed a judgment on this woman because, of course, it's like most people believe that you shouldn't do anything before marriage. You should you shouldn't even, some religions believe you shouldn't even live together before you get married. And this young woman, she passed judgment on this young woman. Even though, she didn't know her, she didn't know, her relationship with this man. But she just, in her mind, it is sinful for her to do that to have sex with someone before marriage. And she has no pain when she's telling Vera what she did, because Vera's the only one that she tells what she did or what she didn't do. And, what she's being accused of being guilty of. Explains her the whole story. She has no pity, no sympathy for this young woman. She deserves her she deserves to do, she has no room for pity. I mean, it kind of makes me think of Emerence from the book The Door. In the idea of someone, because of a guilty conscience, deciding to end their own life. And, the Emily Brent, just as, Emerence is they made their own choices. They deserve consequences for their bad, sinful choice. And just passing judgment, even though, they don't understand, they don't know the person that well. And I always find that interesting, how someone can be so strong in their beliefs that they always, and be so self-righteous that they feel no sympathy, no empathy for someone when they've done something that in their mind is sinful. Now, I'm not saying I'm not going to say how I feel, what I would think personally, but I am saying, though, I don't, I'm trying to understand why you don't feel any into sympathy, any, at least pity for that person. Like I said, that to me, that's really fascinating. Like the idea of you can be so self-righteous about yourself that you don't, it doesn't matter who the person is. If they screwed up in a way or made such a sinful, what you consider so sinful and cowardly even. And it's like, what, like, how do you decide? How do you decide if this person deserves sympathy and pity or not deserve it? Like, how are you able to make that decision? Now, Lisa, there's also religious characters that are, like I said, Stephen King does that, and he has good religious characters too. Like in Rose Red, the one of the people in the group, which is really interesting because she is a psychic too. She is an automatic writer. And now she won't mess with the Ouija board because it's like, what's going to come out of that if you mess with the Ouija board. But she is someone, that, can get in someone's mind in a way. And but she's a good, kind person. Like, she's not like zealous over it or controlling, or like, you have to do, if you are not a perfect pure person, then you're gonna go to hell. And she's not like that. She has strong faith, reads a Bible, and of course, and probably wears, I don't remember if she was wearing a cross, I'm assuming she was. She even prays at one point when they're in the house and being terrorized by all the ghosts and stuff. And she just tries to be a good, moral person, a kind person. And, the one character in the story who's annoying, that is the mama's boy character, she's nice to him. She tries to be nice and kind to him, even if he's rude and disrespectful in that. So there are also good religious characters, and both types of religious figures are, kind of interesting to me, putting them in this kind of setting, this kind of situation where they're alive, they're facing death, they have to face the Grim Reaper, and Emily Brunt is so sure that she's not gonna die, that she didn't do anything wrong, even though, according to this nursery rhyme, they're all meant to die, they're all gonna die. She's like, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. She's so sure of herself that she's a pure good person. But it's debatable, I think. So I think that's what this, even if the characters aren't super complex and they're one-dimensional, I still think the important thing is that this person, this Mr. Owens, is playing God. He's passing judgment on these people. I think that's what's important in the story. That's what's interesting, and that's why I think what the horror is, and what's so interesting, what's so intriguing about this, and Then There Were None. And of course, everyone loves a good thriller mystery type story where, everyone, there's, trying to see, are they going to get out of here? Are they going to survive? And of course, nowadays there's a lot of movies like that where it's like, you kind of don't care about the characters, and you kind of, what's entertaining about the story is how they die. And I mean, these deaths are creative. Like you said, it goes by this nursery rhyme. This 10 little soldiers. And the killer comes with very creative ways on how to off each of them, but use the verses in the nursery rhyme. Like, there's one character that gets, like, they refer to them getting stung by a bee, and it's set up so it looks like there's, so there is a bee around buzzing, but the killer uses a syringe to kill this person. So it's like, it's still sort of indirectly goes with the line. Like, this person is determined to follow the nursery rhyme and be as close as they can get. So of course you can't control a bee. You can only, you can't force the bee to sting a person. I mean, I guess you could put, honey on them or something. But that's it, Or, something sweet. Some kind of sweet. Because, I've had a and a smoothie drink and, spilled on me and I got stung by a wasp. So, and that's, if you have something sweet on them, that works. Anyway, so that was, the other thing, this particular audiobook, because I stopped listening to it last night. This was, I remember who the narrator was because I was very excited when I realized that this person was narrating, and it's Dan Stevens. And he played the Beast in live action Beauty and the Beast movie. He was in, I forgot the character's name. Matthew Crawley in Downton Abbey. He played Charles Dickens in The Man Who Invented Christmas. He was Legion in the show Legion. I don't remember the guy's regular name. And he also was in one of the Night at the Museum movies as Sir Lancelot. And I'm trying to think what else. I know there was one movie where he played a writer. It was set in the 1920s. And I think in the movie he was married, but he was having an affair. He had a muse or something, a woman that was a muse to him, and but I only watched a little bit of the movie. I've never seen the whole thing. I can't think of what else he's done. I mean, you would think I would know, but anyway, I was very excited to see that he was the audiobook narrator. I mean, I would love to see, I think since he's now narrating one of Agatha Christie's books, I think it would be great to see him star in one of the adaptations of one of her books. Of course, I haven't seen all of them, so I don't know, maybe he has. But I had a feeling he would be good with voices because as Charles Dickens in The Man Who Invented Christmas, there are a couple scenes where he's acting out what he's writing in A Christmas Carol. That's what that movie is about the creation of A Christmas Carol. And he's acting out the characters. He will, and I think Charles Dickens, I don't know if I'm assuming he did this for his children where he would act out, perform his characters or something, or maybe that was just something they put in the movie to make the writing process more engaging, more entertaining. And so I figured he would be good at doing voices, and he was really engaging, entertaining. He did a good job at doing all these different, and I know a lot of people complain about, when male narrators make the women characters whiny and what was whiny sounding, and luckily Vera was a little, as they say, hysterical, but she was upset and freaking out because she knew she was going to die. Someone was going to murder her, and she's panicking, so of course she's going to be freaking out and, what they consider hysterical. So it makes sense, but I think he does a good job of not making them a little too whiny and annoying and not too high-pitched of a voice. That's criticism I heard about male narrators. Sometimes they make the women have the really high squeaky voice that's really annoying. I haven't listened to enough male narrators to know if that's how true that is, but that's what the common criticisms I hear, and he didn't do that. I mean, especially because he did a lot of both young and older characters, and a lot of, and so I think, and there was a distinction with the voices that I thought he did a good job with. At least, now, again, this is just my opinion. I thought he was good, but I am biased to him because I like him as an actor. I think he does a really good job as an actor. He performs characters very well, and so maybe someone would disagree with me, but I was, and Lisa, I am biased to him, so maybe I'm not a subjective judge on his performance. But either way, I'm glad that I got, because I'm always I always think that I'm only going to get access to celebrity narrations via, if I had a Audible account, which I don't. I'm not going to spend money on Audible because I don't listen to audiobooks that often. So I'm not going to, and I don't drive, so I don't have a reason, And that's often why people get audiobooks, because they're driving, and so it's a chance for them to listen to. So I don't need to, but luckily there are some audiobooks on Libby that are narrated by actors that I like, which I really appreciate that, including this one. So those are 2 audiobooks, one of them more recent than the other one. The other one has been a few weeks, a few months actually, but the audiobooks were a Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole, I think that's his name is, and then there were None by Agatha Christie, narrated by Dan Stevens. And I apologize that I don't have the narrator for Confederacy of Dunces. But anyway, so I hope you like those 2 reviews, and maybe you'll want to check out those 2 books, whether it's audiobook or read them physically. If you haven't, please, I think they're worth checking out. I hope you are enjoying whatever you read, and I will talk to y'all later. All right, bye.